Hey everybody, I'm Shane Ireland. Welcome to another episode of Tasting Notes with Shane Ireland. Today I am admittedly doing something a little less exciting. I feel like I've had a lot of new releases lately and that's fun, but I'm visiting an old friend today. This is a tobacco that I have stated publicly many times for many, many years, probably well over a decade, that it is my all-time favorite tobacco. And that remains true. It also remains true that it's among the maybe 3 tobaccos that I smoke the most of and is in my rotation the most constantly. I'm talking about Robert McConnell's Scottish Flake. I really love all the Robert McConnell blends, including the sort of cousins to Scottish Flake, which I would consider Folded Flake and Scottish Cake, both of which I also smoke a lot of and have cellared very deeply. But there's something about Scottish Flake that is a little bit different for me than those blends and that I find myself reaching for more often. It's been my number one blend, like I said, for well over a decade, most of my pipe smoking journey, and it has stayed in that spot for a good reason. Now, to be honest with you, I would say that like the reasons why it's my favorite are kind of hard to articulate. It's one of those things that you just feel and you just get. But I will say that it was a bit of a sleeper blend many years ago when I got into it, and I recommended it to a lot of people. I talked about it a lot, and I think it seems like over the years a lot more folks have sort of latched onto it as well for good reason. So let me talk a little bit about the components and the tin note, and then I will light my pipe back up and opine a little bit about my favorite tobacco. Okay, Robert McConnell Scottish Flake. Really similar components to its sister blend Scottish Cake. It's hand-selected dark Virginias, I think primarily red and mahogany grades from what I've been able to figure over the years. A little bit of spicy Kentucky. Now, I don't think that's dark-fired Kentucky. I think that in the context of the European manufacturers, that most likely means burley, air-cured leaf. I do not taste any dark-fired in here and never have. And a hint of Perique. It's also worth saying that from what I can tell, because I've been smoking this a long time, I've also smoked many vintage tins of it. Tins produced in England by Robert McConnell's, early German production, all through the 90s and 2000s. I've smoked a ton of this stuff. I think that the recipe has changed very, very slightly over those many decades. Some small tweaks, and what I am most pleased with, considering it's my favorite blend, is any of those versions, which I'm smoking at different points in their age at this point, so different vintages, it has remained the same core feeling and vibe and experience. So like I said, if there have been some minor component changes, I think that Cop Tobaccos has been able to manage that beautifully ever since they took over production in the early 90s of McConnell's blends. And like I said, depending on the era, I do notice some small differences, but it's still familiar. It's still my favorite tobacco. And I think it's still really true to the original. Whew, the tin note instantly makes me feel like grabbing another pipe and packing one so I can get going right after this guy. It has that really ripe, semi-sweet, kind of sour, little bit of fermented character that I get from Virginia Perique blends and Virginia blends that are on the darker side of the flavor spectrum. Now, this isn't dark in a spicy or woody or whatever kind of a way. It's more like your base and your mid-range notes, as opposed to the sort of zestier and brighter notes that you'll get from brighter Virginia Flake. On the Perique content, we're talking minimal amounts here. This is not even what I would consider really a Virginia Perique, but it has just enough of that sort of dark fruit vibe going on, a little bit of tingle on the retrohale, a little bit of spice and body to keep things interesting and to help with, in my opinion, a remarkable set of long legs when it comes to aging. I think Robert McConnell Scottish Flake ages among the best of any tobaccos I've ever cellared. But even right out of the tin, or with a minimal amount of age, this one here being packed just a few months ago, you have like a really rich and mature flavor, well-rounded, ample sweetness, and a really nice balance between the bready and sort of tangy notes from the dark Virginia grades and a little bit of natural sweetness and sort of a fermented character, even in a young tin. Absolutely intoxicating, my favorite tin aroma, and for me personally, very comforting. But I can't see how any smoker out there wouldn't open this, stick their nose in there and say, oh yeah, that's good. One quick note on the cut. This has changed a couple of times over the years too. If you've been smoking Cop products or McConnell products since way back in the day, Obviously, there was a certain point where most of the European manufacturer changed from the little square tins to the round ones. I personally love the round ones. I feel like they're a little bit safer in the long term in the cellar. The seals tend to hold up better than the small square ones. But you'll notice here that this is actually uncut in the sense that it's not sliced into individual flakes, it's rolled over. So the cake is sliced lengthwise and you end up with flakes that unroll to about that long, and then they're rolled over in the tin. I actually really dig that as a smoker because it's not often that one single flake is exactly the amount of tobacco that I need for a given pipe. And I find that with the rolled flakes, you see a similar presentation in Reiner's Long Golden Flake, the 100-gram Orlik tin, stuff like that. I like it because you can take off as much as you want at a time. And for me, that's really just like kind of a neat little feature. I do think the presentation this way is gorgeous as well, and that compact rolled over flake tends to age really well in these European style tins. But for me, it's all about the fact that I can control exactly how much I need. So if you are a fold and stuff smoker and you're smoking in a Prince versus a billiard or a stack, you can easily adjust and get exactly what you need for your bowl. Less so from a tin that has some serious age on it. I do tend to fully rub out Scottish Flake. It depends where I'm smoking and what pipe I'm smoking in, but more often than not, I am breaking this apart completely. I am aerating it and giving it just a couple minutes of drying time. It has a really nice moisture content straight out of the tin. And if that is your preference, I think you're going to find a really nice rich burst of flavor and still a very good performance. I tend to take the moisture content down very slightly on this one so that I can more easily control the burn. I think that additional moisture content is really a factor in why this is so well built for aging in the long term. When I do smoke old tins, I tend to smoke directly at the moisture content out of the tin. Think of it a little bit like Angel Share when you're talking about aging fine spirits in a barrel. In the long term, you lose a little bit of that alcohol content, you use a little bit of that moisture content, and part of that helps in the fermentation process in the case of tobacco, and you end up with something that is more ready to smoke directly out of the tin. But yeah, for a fresh tin, break it up a little bit to your desired preference, aerate it a little bit, give it no more than 3 to 5 minutes, and I think you have a pretty perfect smoke at that point. As you can see, still burning even though I'm yapping away. All of the Cop products are like this for me, but particularly Scottish Flake and the sort of brothers and the flakes that are very similar to it. Burns with a very fine spontaneity. So I find that I can really back off and nurse the bowl and really back off my cadence and then sort of increase it as needed to get everything back to the combustion that you need to burn the bowl evenly down. And basically it ranges in flavor from something that is very refined, very delicate with a lot of sweetness. And if you really get it going, it's a much richer experience, much more dense on the palate. You do perceive a little bit of that air-cured leaf and a little bit of that perique spice through the retrohale. But this is just a no-nonsense, perfectly balanced, tangy Virginia, malty, the right amount of sweetness with a touch of spice. And that's why I love it. It has everything that I look for in a tobacco in the proportions that just happen to work perfectly for me. I think for others too, but the point is it performs equally well in a variety of pipes. I smoke it in almost everything, and it's never been a disappointment to me. I've never had a bad bowl of it. I find it easy to handle, and yeah, like I said, very comforting. Today, I am smoking my oldest friend, my favorite friend, Robert McConnell's Scottish Flake in a little IMP nose warmer. I've smoked this tobacco in hundreds of pipes, different materials, everything. I chose to revisit it in a meerschaum today because it's not often that I smoke it in a meerschaum, and I wanted to get just even a little bit of a better understanding and familiarity with the flavor because yes, you can smoke something for 10 years very often and still find out new things about it. If you're a Virginia smoker and you have not tried McConnell's Scottish Flake, I think you owe it to yourself to do so. If you're into any of the Cornell and Deal famous Virginia flakes, but particularly Carolina Red Flake with Perique, if you like any of the Rattray's blends, I'm talking like Marlin, Old Gowrie, Howl of the Wind, Howl of the Wind, whatever. Don't come for me in the comments. I think that this is going to be one that will make its way into your rotation. And the cool thing about Scottish Flake and its brother Scottish Cake, I may have called it a sister earlier, sibling, let's do that, is that basically you have some of the same components except different proportions and also a different cut. So I find myself smoking Scottish Cake when I want something that's a little spicier, a little fuller, a little richer, and the Flake is more of an all-day smoke for me. But it's often that I just did a trip in Europe and all I took with me was one tin of this that was actually about 10 years old, and that's all I smoked the whole time in a variety of pipes, and I'm very happy. Absolutely a desert island blend for me. Absolutely my favorite tobacco of all time. And I hope you enjoy it too if you've never tried it. See you guys.